Well, Gwen, what do you think? Do you want to look at it? Well, friends, it's that time. It's that time of year where we all get together, we talk about our favorite books of the year. But you know, I feel like something's missing. What do you think, Gwen? Do you feel she doesn't like? Oh, is it too high? Okay, here. Man, I'm covered in corgi floof. And you know, there's just something here. I feel underdressed. I think that's what it is. This is supposed to be a special occasion. It's the best books of the year. There's all sorts of stuff going on right now. My feed is incredible. So many incredible books. My TBR, which is behind me, keeps growing. But yeah, I feel like we should make this special. So just give me a second and we can get started. But I think this might do the trick. You know, it's funny the things that we still have in our closets because of the pandemic and not being able to wear them. But now is the time. It's time for my favorite books of 2023, and there are so many great books to tell you about. And of course I had dressed for the occasion. Okay, so today I'm talking about my top books of 2023. Overall, my reading year was fine, and I feel like that's definitely the vibe overall for the books that I read. But there were definitely some standouts, so I narrowed it down to 12. It was either 8 or 12, and I just decided to go with 12. So I will, you know, I make the rules here. But these are books that I read for the first time in 2023, and that's really the parameters that I have for it. So I have a nice little collection going on, so we should really just jump right in. And of course, if there's other content I made around that book, I will link it down in the description box. Okay, so first up is my favorite audiobook of the year, and that is Tom Lake by Anne Patchett, performed by Meryl Streep. This is about a woman and her 3 adult daughters and the woman's husband living on the family's orchard during the pandemic. And she starts telling the story of her younger years as a very short-lived career as a younger actress. And she had this love affair with this now very famous actor. And so her daughters want to hear the whole story. And so this is what ensues. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, but it is incredible. Meryl Streep is just perfection and the perfect choice for this audiobook. This is the kind of book I think that was definitely enhanced by the audiobook's narrator. Anne Patchett and I have a hit or miss relationship. This was definitely a hit for me. I think this is the first fiction books of hers that I've really loved, and that's a good sign. So I'll take it. So I was able actually to write a list of some of the best disability books of 2023, and my favorite book from that list, I am biased, of course, like we all are here on BookTube. I really love Jen Campbell's Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit. The way that Jen Campbell talks about being a disabled kid in the hospital especially is just deeply impactful. Her poetry is phenomenal, just the way that she has such a delicate way with the words, but they have so much depth to the meanings behind them. And I just really loved this book. And there's like interspersed are like little excerpts from her own medical files about some of the things the doctor said about her being a specimen. And that really goes behind the Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit as disabled child as exhibit. She also describes her experience with IVF, and that was also just really beautiful, the way that she delves into a very difficult topic of you know, going to different clinics, doing all of these things, wanting to be a mother. There's this whole poem about like being in a room of potential mothers, and it was just so moving. And so I absolutely adored this poetry collection. Of course, there is going to be an Appalachian book on this list. I wrote a list of the best Appalachian books of 2023, and my favorite is Good Women by Hallie Hill. This is a short story collection about Black women from East Tennessee. They are all coming up against what society has its expectations of what a good woman is going to be. There are 12 stories, and each one of the 12 protagonists, all women or girls, are kind of forced to confront these very difficult decisions of what they're going to do. So you have a teenage girl who's taken to a diet support group. You have a woman who's her husband's white, and his white family want her to have a baby, and there's just a lot of really like just microaggressions all the time. She doesn't want to have a baby with him, but she's like, do I still want to be married to him then? There's just all these questions that this woman is facing. And so each story is like that. Every day, a different story is my favorite. I can't really give you one, but like overall, this collection together is just incredibly impactful. And I'm so excited for Hallie Hill's career. This is her debut book. So of course, more is in store, I'm sure. So definitely pick up Good Women if you haven't already. So I've been working on my own manuscript, and so I've been working on some structure things and just trying to figure out like what this memoir is going to look like. And so when I read this book and just experienced the incredible structure of this book, I adored it. It's amazing. This is You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith. She is a poet. She has a poet's eye for prose. It's just stunning, but she tells her story in these little fragments that combined kind of give us a portrait of her life as an artist that was married to a man who did not support her in her art and what that looks like. How do you unentangle your life from someone else's? And this is just a beautiful memoir that I can't stop thinking about. There's so many images that she creates with her just incredible prose, and the way that she sets very firm boundaries about what she's going to share about her kids and their lives. It is spectacular. So yeah, I will be thinking about this memoir for a long time. So I don't read a lot of YA and much anymore, but I picked up this book after listening to the author talk about it at Y'all Fest. And this is All the Fighting Parts by Hannah V. Sawyer. This is one of the best young adult novels that I've ever read, and it is told in verse. It is about a young woman who is sexually assaulted by her pastor. And so the structure is like leading up to the assault, and the assault is kind of in the middle of the book. And then it's leading up to the trial is the second half of the book. And it's just beautifully told in this non-linear way, but it really looks at a young woman's experience having this happen to her, to speaking out. What does that mean? What are the ramifications of that? And it is such a beautiful, beautiful book. We listened to it on the way home from the festival, and it was just, I just was speechless. Like I didn't know what to say. It was so beautiful. Amazing. And it's definitely flying under the radar, so definitely pick this up if you haven't already. I'm going to say that about everyone apparently, but please. So another book that I really adored is Sophia Sinclair's How to Say Babylon. This is her memoir about growing up in a Rastafarian household in Jamaica, and it's about how her poetry really helped her find her way out. This book is about how she grew up in a household where her dad had kind of taken Rastafarian principles and run with them, and he became like a dictator of his own little family. And so she describes being isolated. She describes the emotional, physical, and verbal abuse that she experienced, but there's always that spark of hope of her poetry and what that means for her. I really loved her performance of the audiobook. This is just a gorgeous, lush prose kind of a book. And so when she reads it, she also does all of the voices and the rhythm of the Jamaican accent that she does, and just the story of her family is just beautifully told. I was smitten with this book very early on, and I was just like, I hope it stays this incredible throughout the whole thing, and I was not disappointed. It is a beautiful story, and I think it is one that really makes you think about the assumptions that people have about class. A lot of her book is about class and how, and colonialism, how a lot of the upper class were white folks from the United States living in Jamaica, and you know, people from Jamaica, the Black people from Jamaica, didn't have those resources. They weren't given those opportunities. And so this book really makes you think, and a lot of, like, all the best memoirs do, but it's also a testament to her love of her mother, love of her family. It is stunning, just beautiful. Okay, so next up is a short story collection that I read very early on, and this is The Farway World by Patricia Engel. I love Patricia Engel. There's just something about her work that really captures my imagination. Each story is so different, and on the audiobook, each narrator is different. I don't believe there's any repeat narrators. At most, there's one, and I absolutely adored how that worked because each one of these characters is so different. You know, this is a slim short story collection, and it was just over so fast because I absolutely adored the way that she's able to capture these characters in these really what we would think of as mundane moments, but the choices that the characters make in those moments, they really change their lives forever. And she's able to capture characters in such a really fully fleshed way in such a short amount of space. I absolutely adored this short story collection. One of my favorite short story collections of the years, and it was honestly what first got me thinking about doing a story a day challenge, because I was like, I don't read enough short story collections. I should get on that. I also read this book very early on, and this is Liliana's Invincible Summer, A Sister's Search for Justice by Cristina Rivera Garza. And this is about Rivera Garza's experience going to Mexico, going to the police department and getting her sister's file. Her sister Liliana was murdered, and so she really wanted to find out who did it. She wanted to learn more about what happened to her sister, to retrace her steps. So I've seen some people talk about this as true crime, but for me, this isn't a focus on her sister's death. This is a focus on her sister's life, because we go back into their childhood and Christina's like memories of their childhood, what that was like. She tries to talk to all of Liliana's friends and kind of rebuild her final days, and only at the very end does, you know, Liliana's story end, right? So, and she doesn't even go into a ton of details per se because she's not sure what is going on. And so I just was riveted from the first page. It is a beautiful testament, a beautiful love letter to her sister, just beautifully written. I cannot express to you the way how well crafted this book is. This was longlisted or shortlisted for both for the National Book Award this year. I will put any info in the description box, and for good reason. This is one of the books that I was really hoping would be acknowledged, as incredible as it is, and get the love that it deserves, because it is just one of the most stunning memoirs I have read. It is one of the most stunning memoirs I have read, and I would say a book later on this list is really the only other book that I think could match it, if not more. So gorgeous. They are very excited about the people outside. I'm trying to talk about this book, friends. We're down at the last 4, friends. And so these, you know, I reshuffled these 4 a gazillion times, but I think I have the ranking that I want them in. But let's just jump into the next one. This is Every Drop is a Man's Nightmare, stories by Megan Kamali Kakimoto. And this is a short story collection about Kanaka Native Hawaiian women and like what their lives are like. What does it mean to exist as an Indigenous person in Hawaii in the face of settler colonialism, right? And it's just beautiful. There is a story where a Native Hawaiian woman answers a ad for someone to participate in adult films that cater to white men, and then they have Native Hawaiian women starring in them. And so she answers that, and just like, how is she supposed to make money on the land that her people have lived on for ages? Like, how is she supposed to exist and survive in the face of that? So the title story is about a young woman who first gets her period while driving over this bridge, and there's supposed to be like knowledge that her family has. Some of her family think it's just superstition. Some of them just think it's like ancestral knowledge, like what is going on. And There's a young woman whose grandmother wants her to perform in this ceremony that the women in her family have been participating in for generations, but her mother is like, no, you're not going to be taken off into the, you know, Hawaiian wilderness and doing this thing. And it's just like the tension between that, of this young girl wanting to honor and respect her family heritage, but why is her mother like resistant to this? Like, there's so many beautiful stories in this book, and I really want more people to pick it up. I really want more people to love it as much as I do. It is just so, so good. It is such a stunning collection. It's a debut, and I cannot wait to read more from this author. Book number 3 is Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez, translated by Megan McDowell. This is quite the hefty book, so I'm going to try to hold it up long enough. So this book is a novel told in multiple sections. So we start out with a man who is living, and I think it's like what, 80s Argentina. And so he is taking his son north of Buenos Aires, and they're going up to see his late wife's family, but they are kind of evil apparently. You figure out as you're driving up, the man though has some severe heart problems. He's very sick. And they then meet like his sister-in-law. They have this whole like road trip scenario, but something weird and otherworldly is going on. And I don't want to tell you what it is, because that to me was such a huge spoiler, because we know that his wife's parents and their whole little crew up in rural Argentina, they are doing something very evil. And we know that he knows what it is, but he's not sharing with the reader what it is, and he doesn't want his son to be any part of it, and so you're constantly anxious about the son moving forward. We jump forward in time from there to a different section. We get the son's point of view, we get different women's point of view, and through these different points of view, we kind of get this whole story about this group of very privileged people who were really using their power to harm the rest of the country. And it really delves into the dictatorship. I've seen a lot of comments of folks who have studied the dictatorship really love this book, because it really uses a lot of like a lot of symbolism for it. I will say there is a lot of violence towards women and girls and young children. So if that's something that you're, you know, just would rather not read right now, then I would say skip this book. But this is a work of horror, right? So, and the way that the author handles body horror, which is a tradition in horror, right? But a lot of times it really says a lot of negative stuff about disabled people when you see it in other books, right? They have a lot of problems in their portrayal of disabled people. But in this book, the author portrays disabled people as disabled people. There are good disabled people, bad disabled people, just like anyone else, but also like their disability often stems or is made worse by these evil people who are in power, and how that power dynamic affects disabled people. And there are characters who really have a lot of ableist ideas about their family members who are disabled, and so many different things in this book. It made me really solidify that I'm a huge fan of Mariana Enriquez, and I cannot wait for her short story collection, which is coming out in the fall of 2024. So excited for it. So number 2 is Hijab But Blues, a memoir by Lamia H. So this book is about a person from, well, South Asian descent who grew up in the Middle East, and they went to an all-girls school, and they're sitting in the classroom and they realize that they have a crush on their female teacher. They're not really able to deal with everything then, but when they go to the United States for college, they begin to kind of figure out their sexuality and their gender identity. And it's just an incredible memoir about what that looks like, what this, you know, what the author's faith looks like. Lamia talks about, you know, wearing a head covering and having white, like liberal people question how they can be liberal or progressive and queer and still be a Muslim. Like, there's a lot of discussion about that. But Lamia is a person of faith trying to make space for themselves. And they actually structured the book around figures in the Quran and like their connection to the stories, what they've learned. You could tell they really love studying their faith and what that looks like for them. They found family and find a way to express both being Muslim and being queer all at the same time. Gorgeous. Absolutely love this book. I cannot stop thinking about it, and it's just so beautiful. Absolutely adore this book. So my favorite book of the year was not, I don't know, like when I read it I was like, oh, this is top 5, like for sure, but then I was not sure like how that would rank. Like I did not realize how much I loved it until I started reviewing all of the books. I'm like, oh well, none of these books aren't as good as this one, like, you know, the ranking that you do in your head. And I realized that I just absolutely adored Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Tseng. And I love this book. Like, I cannot describe to you. Well, this is about a unnamed narrator who's kind of sort of like at the end of the world, I guess. There's like a bunch of ash that has blocked the sun, and so crops have failed, and so this chef really has very little to cook with. And they are stuck in Europe because the United States won't let even its, you know, citizens back in. Like, it's complicated. So the chef ends up taking a job probably somewhere in Italy at this compound at the top of a mountain, which is above the like clouds that block out the sun, so they're able to grow food. And there's like this scientist there who's the daughter of the guy who owns the compound, and like love happens. But this is really just a huge love letter to food. It's a love letter to how food is culture and reflects our existence and the beauty of that, but it also looks at our viewpoint characters' complicity in the privilege that this like billionaire guy has, what, you know, this person's willing to subject themselves to stay in this very privileged position near the billionaire, in the billionaire's compound. Like, what does that look like? It's a very slim novel. You could probably read it in a sitting, but I keep thinking about it. As you may have noticed, for me, a book that is long-lasting is ones that I keep thinking about, ones that I keep mulling over, learning new things about. So I just love this book. Man, this isn't a book I wish I could read again for the first time, but I can reread it, and that's fine too, and I will still learn new things. So I can't hold them all. I am too tired. But these are my favorite books of 2023. Thank you for coming along. It's lovely to be back. Of course, all of these will be linked in the description box, and I will include other content I made about them, etc. down there, so definitely check that out. I'm gonna put these down. I will say, as you know, over time I just can't lift all those books anymore. But anyway, thank you for joining me for my favorite books of 2023. I really appreciate it. You know, one more round for the outfit. You know, I put the effort into putting on real clothes today. That doesn't happen every day. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends. Come here. Good boy. I'm gonna get fur all over my jacket. Say hi.